We do this literally every time it's game day. I'm gonna go ahead and start with this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Yes, welcome to episode 23 of the phenomenon known to mankind is Saturday afternoon's main event. Of course, if you do not know who I am, whether you are dumb, stupid, blind, or just plain irrelevant, I suggest you go back to school, go into your local library, get the biggest dictionary you can find, preferably Merriam-Webster, and look me up under the word phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a phenomenal one, but look. Yes, it's Saturday. Yes, we have a lot here for you guys today, but I just have to go ahead and say this. To every single person in the New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, any person around the U.S., and anyone in the world who shares the same love that I and my co-host do for this glorious day, please, empty out your prayer circles, go to Papa Shango and do what you have to do, because today is Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and our New York Knicks are in dire straits. We're down 3-2. We won last game at the Garden. Fantastic stuff. Blew him out by 20. Good grief. But look, today it's do or die. Win or go home. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in Indiana. It's Game 6. Please, just please, do what you have to do, because you see, we need orange and blue skies for Game 7. Orange and blue skies. That's all I'm asking for. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, go New York, go New York, go. Good grief, they kill me. But look, jokes aside, everything aside, this is professional wrestling. We have a lot stacked for you guys today. And of course, we can't do it without our other co-hosts. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, please allow me to introduce to you my brother from another mother and dimension, the one and only limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun who is not having a hard time holding his alligators down. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, give me 2 claps and a peep stage.
Woo! Yes, once again, another Saturday, another scat-free zone. We got a lot on the table. We got Knicks, we've got wrestling, we've got a great Saturday, and of course, before you can begin any of those other steps, you got to reel in those 3 tenets. 3 of them. Laughs, good times, and all the wrestling news possible. That is what we do every Saturday as a commitment to you, for all those watching us at home. Those are on all of the different handles that we have, wherever you're watching. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy.
Absolutely, peeps. Absolutely. Well, look, from there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're going to go ahead and get down into the nitty-gritty right now into professional wrestling. So look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for going ahead and joining us here on Saturday afternoon's main event today. So look, peeps, we're not going to go ahead and waste no time. We're not going to go ahead and get into Wrestling Crash Course to start the show. We're going to go ahead and do something a bit different, right?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. So look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, our other co-host, Mr. 401, Christopher Morton, will possibly not be here today. He had himself a good little night. Probably went out with a couple of melanated shorties. You know, he did his thing. You know,
he was styling and profiling. Woo!
What was that one song in the 90s, peeps? Return of the Mac. Like, you know, let's just say it like that. But look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're going to go ahead and start the show out today with something a bit different. So look, here's the thing. Peeps, of course, you and I both watched AEW Double or Nothing last week. Great show, right?
It was good enough.
Great show? Don't you think?
It was good enough.
Good enough. Okay, I'll take that. But when it comes down to it, what were some of your highlights of the show?
Highlights of the show, the main event I thought was pretty solid. It wasn't great, but it was a solid match. There were a lot of points within it that we're going to probably talk about at some point. Also, for me, Timeless Toni Storm continues to be the best part of AEW, as far as I'm concerned. Her character, the matches that she's having, the belief in her character that she portrays on TV is without question something that a lot of people can get into. But also, FTR are still proving that they are still the best tag team in that company outside of the Hurt Syndicate. And at some point, we know down the road, those two teams are going to meet. How it happens, when it happens, maybe at All In, who knows? But I think that's where they're headed in this. But yeah, interesting, especially when Uncle Dave gave us his star ratings for all of these matches.
Peeps, don't start. Peeps, just do not start. That pissed me off.
Yeah.
So I'm not even. How does Anarchy? I'm gonna shut up. I digress.
First one of the day. I actually had to screenshot the star ratings on my phone just to make sure that I wasn't going blind. Yes.
I'm not keeping that. I'm not keeping that BS on my phone, Peeps. It genuinely, it did. It genuinely pissed me off. But look. What I want to know, okay, when it comes down to it, what were your thoughts on the main event?
I thought the main event with Ospreay and Paige, like I said before, was solid. I loved the interaction between the two of them going in. I liked the way that the camera, basically what they did from a production standpoint, was much better than I've seen for other AEW pay-per-views, in which they kept the spotlight on the ring, and then they kept the lights out around the periphery of the crowd, so that it looked dark outside, sort of the way that they used to do in the territory days, where they would put the spotlight on in the ring, the hard camera, you could see everything in the ring, and everything on the outside was not illuminated. So it brought more of that attention. Yeah. It felt big fight. It had that big fight feel. But there were a lot of things within the match that I know a lot of people have talked about as being not so great, not so good as far as the way that it happened. And also, and this is one of my complaints about AEW, and you know where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. I went to Dave & Buster's to see this pay-per-view, and the match did not start until 11:45 Eastern time. This match went over 40, almost 45 minutes, very close to 40, 45 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood. So halfway through the main event, the feed got cut. Well, you got to go, guys. Got to go. So, yes, that's something that they're going to have to do. Either cut the matches down, or instead of starting at 8 p.m., start the pay-per-view at 7. Have your long pay-per-view so that you have that revenue stream that people want to see the show. Don't get interrupted by the policy of another company that is actually supposed to be showing your pay-per-views. But hey, I digress. There you go. This is number 2. That's number 2, folks. There you go.
Number 2. Now look, we have somebody chiming in here. Of course, Corey Richmond. Probably some of you guys Corey Brady. He says, "Love you guys, but you guys are crazy. Double or Nothing was one of the best pay-per-views at the time. That is not Dave & Buster's fault. That is Dave & Buster's fault, not AEW." Now look, peace.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going in or out?
Yeah, you're going in and out a little bit.
Here's the thing. Okay, hold on. Let's do this. How about now?
Yeah, you're good.
Better?
A little bit better, yeah. Yeah, I think Tony Khan got to your feed because you're freezing up a little bit. But yeah.
So
now I can start to hear you. There you go.
Okay, perfect. So look, here's the thing, right? When it comes down to these AEW pay-per-views,
yes.
Are we saying that it was bad? No. Are we saying it was good? No. We're saying that it was solid. It gave us what it had to give. Certain points in some of the parts of the show, there were points that were lacking. There were points that, okay, from a production standpoint, some matches were top tier. But then again, You sit there and you begin to ask, how is it where the best wrestle when sometimes some of these spots and some of these matches are filled with botches? If this is where the best wrestle, then we should go ahead and suspect that the best aren't going to go ahead and put on a cluster. We suspect that the best aren't supposed to be going ahead and having people getting dropped on their heads on accident any given point at a time. Now, look, peeps, I'm not saying that they're bad, but look, when you have Jamie Hayter and Mercedes Moné putting on a good match, do you suspect that ending to be filled with a botch?
You would hope not. No.
So tell me why in the blue hell that the match ends with it being a botched roll-up where Jamie Hayter's face gets planted straight into the mat, and then you have commentary trying to ridicule us, making us look like dumb fucks, saying that it was a DDT when literally we know it was supposed to be a freaking roll-up.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, Pete.
Yes. There's a way to cover up. Put it like this. If we're looking at wrestling, and if something happens in a match, just like in any other sport, if you get a botch, it happens. I'm not expecting every single match to be 100% perfect from a move standpoint.
Of course,
certain things happen. Things happen, as we'll talk about later on. Things that happen on Raw, and a couple of things that have happened on AEW Dynamite. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well, as far as botches and accidents and injuries, etc. But at the same time, commentary is supposed to accentuate what happens on the broadcast. That's their link to the sports presentation that the audience is going to get. So if somebody botches something, well, maybe that was what it looked like. Maybe I think that's what it was. That's one thing. It's another thing to come across and seem disingenuous with the cover-up. And then that cover-up then accentuates the botch. Mm-hmm. I have a broadcasting degree. And when I was in college, I was told that if you're on camera and you make a mistake, you don't go over it and try to correct it because it brings more attention to the accident or the botch or the miscue. And that's one of the things that has happened on this pay-per-view. There were a couple of botches that happened on the show that you can cover up. Now, this is not to impugn AEW overall, but if that's the case, WWE, they actually do a better job of covering up botches from the commentary side of things and makes it look like, well, this is what happened. Maybe this was the case, and maybe that was going to happen. And then they don't bring attention to it for the rest of the match.
Thank you, peeps.
Yes.
Now, look, when it comes down to that, I'm not even going to go ahead and continuously get into it. Now, look, when it comes to the main event, I thought it was a good match. Mm-hmm. Genuinely thought it was a good match. Do I feel that the right person went over? Yes, because this should have been the case since last year. Hangman Adam Page going into it should have been Hangman Adam Page to go ahead and, main event for the AEW World Title since last year. I've been saying this. Now, when it comes to the story that drops after this.
Okay.
Peeps, I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? I'm genuinely going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
You've been watching for years.
Yes.
Decades.
Eons. Even.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you ever believe that in Texas's NWA, right? Kerry Von Erich and Harley Race would be vouching for each other to be NWA's World Heavyweight Champion?
No. And the reason why is because you would know going in who is winning and who isn't.
Now, fast forward. Would you imagine Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair both vouching for each other to win the world title?
No. And the reason why is they would know going in who's going to be the world champion, who was winning, especially depending on where they were going. and the line of where that story was going that they were trying to tell.
Rock Austin. Would you see the same thing?
Exactly. Because they would know going in what was the case.
Now, why is it that the story comes out that Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay didn't want to go ahead and win the match? They were vouching for each other to go on to main event at All In Texas. What sense does that make? Tell me, peeps.
Okay. This is how I'll explain the thought process of it morale-wise, and then I'll explain it to the presentation, which is more not so much on them, is much more on Tony Khan. Here's why. I don't have a problem with the guys in the back if they really think that somebody else should get a push. I don't have a problem with somebody vouching and saying, you know what, it's this guy's time to get that push. Let's go ahead and do it because that person, we as a company believe in this guy. Let's go and push this guy. Let's see where it goes. That's not what happened here. The Death Rider story has been told and has been building up to something. What that something is, we can only guess. But the Death Rider story has been building, I'm guessing, all the way up to All In. Maybe that's where the end game was supposed to go initially with the whole Death Rider story. This has been going on since October of last year. So we're sitting on 7, almost 8 months of this story where we know that Mox and the Death Riders have supposedly taken away the world championship from the view of the public because they don't believe that the wrestling fans respect what this is supposed to mean and that the wrestlers that are there shouldn't see it. Whatever that story is supposed to be, that's what they're running with. Most people have thought of that the story was going to be an AEW original. Somebody that the fans have gotten behind was going to be that one wrestler that took the belt from Moxley. We've been hearing since Ospreay signing that Will Ospreay has been the face of AEW going forward as far as the guy that's going to sell pay-per-views and merchandise, etc., tickets. What we did not realize is that we know that Page, being an AEW original, one of the first people that signed with AEW, was going to be that quote-unquote face that was going to push forward, but a year late, as you just specified earlier. The reason why I pin this on Tony Khan is that if he is the booker, end-all, be-all decision maker, if they're going into the weekend of the pay-per-view not knowing who was going to go over going in, that is on Tony Khan. Because if you have a storyline that is not just an ancillary storyline like who's going to win the Continental Championship, who's going to win the Tag Team Championship, whatever's the case, this is for the face that is going to be opposite the world champion at your number one pay-per-view in July in Texas. And you know going forward that what we're guessing, whoever is the main event is going to win that world title. You'd think that Tony Khan would have known this going in weeks ago when he came up with the Owen Hart tournament, knowing since last year the winner of the tournament gets a world title shot. Why is it that we're hearing the weekend up to the weekend of the pay-per-view, there was no winner determined? It's like you just stated, Page and Ospreay were going back and forth. Well, maybe you should win it. Well, maybe you should win it. I think you should win it. I think you should win it. Are they going with a storyline that Ospreay can't win the big one and he has to overcome his demons to finally win that championship? Or is this Page's redemption as to what happened with him in the previous 2 years and his feud with Swerve and losing the championship and being turned on by the Bucks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? That should have been something that came in. Oh, what do you know? There you go.
Mr. Mac himself, Mr. 411. Buddy, how you doing, Chris?
Yo, I'm not doing well. Unfortunately, you're the uncle, Triple C.
Oh, Lord. I thought he said he didn't have anything to do with it. What happened?
He didn't do so much with it. It froze his camera.
see, he's covered all his tracks, peeps.
Yes.
Uncle Triple C had nothing to do with it, ladies and gentlemen. Don't blame the man.
Yes.
Oh, Lord. Chris, yo, fix your Wi-Fi, buddy. Fix your Wi-Fi, man. Ah, jeez. But look, peeps. Here's what it comes down to, right? When it's set where, and I'm seeing Corey say, wrestlers not knowing the results does not mean Tony did not know who was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I get it. I understand where your position lies when it comes to the state of the company. I get it. But there's a sense when you can be understanding and prevalent to the situation, and there's another point where you can kind of seem tone deaf to it. This is one of those things where I think you're seeming tone deaf to it. Notice how we lead it up to the show. Notice how we kind of went up to the topic. We approached the topic asking from different eras if different wrestlers would be sitting there vouching for each other to go ahead and win the title. Or vouching to go ahead and be the number one contender. Would you hear any of those men vouching for each other to go ahead and be the winner? No. Why? Because the promoter, the person in charge, the person who's booking the matches, would let it be known weeks, months prior to everything what would happen in the sense of the match. Who would be the one taking the pin? Who would be the one going over? None of that was the case when it came down to this. So who do you blame? I want to genuinely know. Who do you blame? What, the fans? What, TNT?
I'll give you a perfect example that kind of ties into this. It's an old example, but it's an example nonetheless. The example of superstar Billy Graham, the late superstar Billy Graham, have mercy, winning the WWF championship and knowing that he was going to lose the championship to Bob Backlund. They wanted a face. This is Vince McMahon Sr. Wanting to have a face as his champion, as that bridge from Bruno to Bob Backlund. But they needed a heel. Superstar Billy Graham wins the belt. He had the belt for literally almost a year. He knew when he won the championship, the date he was going to lose it, who he was going to lose it to, and how he was going to lose it. You know why? Because the promoter booked it that way. That's where I put the blame on Tony Khan. Because if you are running the company, and like I said before, if you've crafted this overarching storyline with the Death Riders and whoever is going to be in there, you have to know what the end game is and who the participants of the end game are. Outside of an injury or something happening, a contract dispute, those things come up. But outside of that, you have to know going in who's going to be your champion going forward, who's going to be the participant in your number one pay-per-view that is literally 2 months away. That's just what I'm looking at.
All I'm saying is that now he's saying Sean Ross Sapp and Dave Meltzer both said Tony knew the result ahead of time. So why is it would they also go ahead and put out the fact that both of these men vouch for each other to go ahead and win the world title? Do you see how ass backwards it looks?
Mm-hmm.
Just genuinely, do you see how ass backwards it looks?
Yeah.
If there is structure, there is structure. There shouldn't be anything in between where you're getting, oh, I don't care about backing opponents to get the win. If you don't want it more than the other person, if you're supposed to be saying that you're the face of the company, you're like, what? Peeps, once more. Dusty said that he was the face of the NWA, or Dusty had backing. Did Dusty ever sit there and Dusty ever go ahead and make the notion that, look, no, Flair has to win? He wanted to be the man.
He was the booker. He was the booker. And he knew going in who his cash cow was. Dusty knew back then that Flair was the guy in the NWA and the Crockett's and the Carolinas. So he knew that outside of putting the belt occasionally on himself, to push tickets so that they know that they would make more money of Dusty losing the belt back to Flair or losing the belt somewhere in that neighborhood. The booker knows what's going on. We're not if there's anything that changes between now and the pay-per-view in July, all we know of right now is what basically happened, and that's where a lot of this consternation comes from. But all of this has to be in the lap of Tony Khan, because he's the guy that crafted this storyline that let it go this long, and now you got one participant going into your number one pay-per-view, and the weekend before, none of the participants knew who was going to go over. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Chris, look, you're in now. I see that you're working, buddy. Go ahead and end this whole segment off before we go ahead and just go into Wrestling Crash Course and the rest of the show, because I had it up to here with this.
H, which Survivor Series was it when HBK wrestled Sid at the Garden and the crowd went nuts and wanted?
Oh, yeah.
No,
96 or 97? I think it was 96.
96, because 97 was the Montreal Screwjob.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember being there in the building, and even then it was the early days of dirt sheets, if you will, in terms of the internet. Obviously, Meltzer existed long before the dirt sheets, but people had speculated that in that moment, in that setting, and that HBK was going to win, but Vince reacted to the crowd and changed the finish. And later on, that came out. I mean, I don't really know to this day what happened with that. Do you remember exactly? Because that was always interesting to me.
Not specifically, but maybe Vince can be reactionary sometimes. I mean, we know that he killed the Hogan-Jake Roberts potential feud because of crowd reaction against Hogan and towards Jake Roberts.
Correct. Yes.
So in that sense.
Yeah. I'm
just saying that I'm not killing it as much as you guys are. I mean, granted, you want to know the result, but it's AEW, so why would it make sense?
Good point.
I think the thought process going in was one of two things. Either this was going to be Ospreay's time to be the world champ, which we talked about ad nauseum over the last few months, about at some point Ospreay is going to be AEW world champion, which would not be an issue with me. I think we can pretty much guarantee that's going to happen within the next 6 months or so. But also we know that Adam Page being booked the way he was, especially coming off of the Swerve Strickland feud, that he had the momentum going forward to potentially put the belt on him. So him winning, I don't have a problem with that at all. It's just that why wait till the weekend of, if that's the case, to figure out who's going to go in?
It serves a problem when literally months prior, you send a man out there to cut a promo to the fans talking about, oh, I'm going to go to All In, bruv, and I'm going to go ahead and call my shot and win the AEW World Championship. You see, so what's the point of calling an audible? What's the point of sending a man out there? Where's the professionalism? You want to sit there and you want this man to go ahead and get the backing. He gets the backing, and then you sit there and you're like, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to win. Give me the Page. No, Page is like, no, I want to give it. So once more, where's the structure? Where's the structure?
I hope they don't turn this into a triple threat down the road, because we've seen that happen a bunch of times.
Yeah, you see what? Seeing Swerve go ahead and get into the fold of it, kind of like, pissed off about it. Now what? You're gonna go ahead and be like, oh, he's gonna go ahead and help Page down the line. But literally, wasn't he cool with Page how many weeks before? Wasn't there a sense of realization when it came down to, oh, you deserve getting your house burned down? And he was like, I know. Wasn't there a sense of realization where it was just like, oh, you know what? Maybe there may seem to be a sense of realization. Maybe he's starting to go ahead and turn a new leaf. Now all of a sudden he's just pissed off. Well, what did he blow up? You know what? I digress. I'm tired of this. We've already wasted 30 minutes of our time talking about this. I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of it. You know what? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, this marks the end of the first half of Same. When we come back, we're gonna go ahead and get into Wrestling Crash Course, our questions, and then that'll be it. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. The second half of Same is coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, of all ages, look, welcome back to the second half of Sane. Of course, it's me, the Phenomenal One. Right beside me, of course, is the Peep Stage, and right down below us is Mr. 411. We're here to give you laughs, good times, and all the rest of it possible. Look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, of all ages, we're going to go ahead and start with this. Of course, when you go ahead and you sit around for Saturday afternoon's main event and you hear this sound, it's time for one thing only. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for
Wrestling Crash Course.
Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, look. First things first. Trick Williams is the new TNA World Champion. Peeps, how we feel about this?
It's interesting. I think a lot of purists were like, "Oh, this is really terrible." The fact that this is the first time we've had a WWE contracted wrestler win another promotions championship on their home ground. The last time we had anything similar to this was when Taz had to take the world title, or the ECW world title, off of Mike Awesome, because Mike Awesome was in the process of going to WCW, and they kind of had to do that by loaning Taz, who was in the WWE at the time, loaning him the ECW to take the belt off of him, so then he could then lose the belt to Tommy Dreamer. So that's the last time something like that happened. But as far as the story goes, this gives TNA more face as far as getting people there and getting more attention with the WWE's product on TNA. And I think it'll bring more eyeballs to TNA wrestling, knowing that they have a contracted WWE guy with this agreement holding their world championship.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really more about Trick Williams and his future. And we talked about it last week and the week before. When does he get the main roster call up? Because it's long overdue. Now they're having him do these things. So I'm not really sure where they're going with him. And in terms, I know the internet or the whole TNA thing, it's not a big deal because we know it's essentially another minor league of WWE. It's not. It doesn't drive me crazy.
Kind of like a feeder system now.
Honest question, does Trick winning the title have you actually going out of your way to find Access TV?
Well, I'm going to look at it irregardless. But if the average person that maybe didn't know what TNA was or what they were about, or didn't even know that TNA was still around, maybe they watched TNA years ago and didn't realize it because the people that they saw watching TNA had either retired or they've gone out of promotion and other promotions. So I think there would be a small uptick in attention to their ratings, but they would need a better TV deal if they're going to get more eyeballs on the product.
All right. Look, from there, we move to the world of AEW into WWE. Mariah May is now a free agent, ladies and gentlemen. Removed from the AEW roster. Of course, we know that this is the case of her possibly going ahead and going to WWE, which is what she's always been wanting to do. We've always been speculating since the Hollywood ending match with Toni Storm that this was going to be the case. Now seeing that this is possibly going to happen, Peeps, where do we see her landing? Does she start in NXT, knowing what they're doing with the women's division over there? What's going to be going on?
I could see her in TNA for a brief second, as we know a lot of call-ups are happening Fast and Furious, and we'll probably get hit on that too. I can see her there for a cup of coffee before being called up. I could also see her potentially on SmackDown, just coming out there and showing up and debuting on SmackDown. I don't think she necessarily needs to be on NXT. They could bring her in and already inject her into their women's championship struggles and title reigns and into that picture.
Chris.
Yeah, there's enough food for everybody to eat on the main roster right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think she's that good. She doesn't need to be down.
Aga.
Yeah, so she can go right to the main roster, no problem.
Yeah.
Indeed, got it. Speaking on the main roster, more main call-ups to be coming soon to the main roster. We've already speculated. We've already been hearing. Ricky Saints is one of them. Stephanie Vauquer is another. Peeps, with this being said that we're hearing about all these names being called up to the main roster sooner or later, are we going to go ahead and, wishful thinking? Or are we thinking that, NXT will be just fine, knowing that if Jordan Grace and Stephanie Vauquer move up alongside Ricky Saints, is there a good chance that everything's going to be all right within NXT?
I think so. I think with the LFG show that they have, where they've got their feeder system there, they have Evolve, so they do have NXT wrestlers that are on Evolve that are getting seasoning and then will probably come back there. They can get a number of independent stars that are looking there to go. And also remember, they also have AAA. They own the AAA organization, so they can still bring in stars from there and put them into NXT, and they will be fine. The call-ups that they have are already seasoned veterans that were in NXT because they needed to get them seasoned and used to the WWE's brand of wrestling, their brand of entertainment. So now that they're seasoned enough to know what to do, they're all ready. Jordan Grace, we could have made that argument, didn't need to go to TNA. Stephanie Vauquer didn't need to go to NXT, I should say. So yeah, they're ready for the main roster.
Okay. Speaking of main roster, moving away from WWE a little bit, Vince and Kennedy McMahon creates a new company. No, it's not a wrestling company, ladies and gentlemen. It seems to be a TV production company called 14 and I Holdings. Within the sense, we've been hearing a lot. We've been speculating a lot. There have been talks about him possibly wanting to buy back the WWE. Of course, we know TKO isn't selling. That's not going to be happening. But what can be in the mind of Vince and Kennedy McMahon as of now? Chris, we'll start with you.
Who knows? This man is so demented and sick. I mean, I don't know how anybody can take any of this seriously. Like, I don't know what will he eventually get bored with this and try to do wrestling again once this fails? This is going to be another epic fail like the XFL. I don't know what his goals until we actually know the blueprint for what he's going to try to do with this company. I don't know where it's going to go. I mean, what is it going to be, another WWE Films thing? Like, just fail.
Yeah, I was headed in that same thought process. I mean, there are so many ventures that Vince has gone into away from the WWE because he had the cachet of being Vince McMahon, and that carried him to a lot of leeway to be able to venture off and diversify his portfolio in certain avenues. He's not going to be able to do that now. And especially after we know that John Laurinaitis is now going to be working for the prosecution in the Janelle Clark case, or Janelle Grant case. Who knows where monetarily he's going to be going forward, if we even get this to trial. So
what type of proof do you have, though? That's what I want to know. That's the real question. What does Johnny Cage have up his sleeve? I just have to ask.
We have to think about it like this. If John Laurinaitis worked in lockstep with Vince McMahon for well over a decade, maybe a little longer based on his relationships within the business, knowing that that's the case and knowing what he may or may not know, I'm pretty sure whatever he knows is probably not good in a situation where this is like a civil suit. This isn't Vince going to jail or anything like that. That's not the case. It's how much money is he going to lose? And if he's trying to start up a production company, who knows where they're going to go from there.
Good grief. Okay, well, look, with that being said, this kind of marks the end of Wrestling Crash Course, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you guys for going ahead and listening. If you guys want to go ahead and keep it with all the latest social media news and updates, all you got to do is one thing and one thing only. Follow us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event. Follow us on Twitter at Saturday Main and on TikTok at Saturday Afternoons ME. Peeps, before we go ahead and get into the questions, go ahead and give us the ratings for this week.
Okay, I'm going to give you threefold ratings. I'll give you AEW, NXT, and Saturday Night's Main Events ratings because NXT on top again for the second straight week. 650,000 people watch with 0.14 in the demo, and AEW did 636,000 with 0.16 in the demo. So ironically, NXT going in after their pay-per-view, their viewership was down a little bit, but AEW's went up a little bit. So that's interesting. Now, Saturday night's main event, based on what they did from the first show back in January, they did like 1.4 and almost 1.5 million. They did almost 2 million. They did 1.9 million on Saturday night's main event.
They need that because I felt like that show was better presented than Backlash. It felt like a bigger deal than Backlash.
Indeed.
It almost felt like a premium live event house show, like a quote unquote glorified house show with pay-per-view values. That's what it felt like.
Not wrong. You're not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. Well, look, from there, we're going to go ahead and move into these questions real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, as you can see, we got a couple of questions here. You want to go ahead and be a part of the action. All you got to do is one thing only. Follow us on it. DM us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event. Send in a question in the words of the wrestling god, WWE Hall of Famer JBL. I guarantee he'll be on the next episode of the show. First one comes from Master Sean 007. He says, greetings, gentlemen. With all this talk of Vince McMahon wanting to get back into owning or starting a wrestling company, what would stop him from buying TNA?
WWE
Common sense.
Yeah.
No, WWE probably put a stop to that. TKO.
Yeah, absolutely.
TKO would let him buy right now.
Yes. The TKO model is we now own WWE's property. And we have a working relationship with TNA. The last thing that they want to do, knowing that they have a contractual agreement with TNA, is to have the person that they're trying as best as they can to distance themselves from ends up buying a piece of a promotion that they have an agreement with. That's not going to happen. As far as Vince buying and getting his own wrestling promotion, Vince is almost 80 years old. That's not happening. He's going to swim in his money bin. He's going to be happy or bored or whatever rich people do. He's always
going to be bored. No, he wants to do stuff.
Absolutely.
He's still very ambitious and maniacal. So he doesn't want to sit. You know why? I'll tell you why. A lot of college football coaches in the past, the second they retired, they died. He doesn't want to retire because he probably feels he'll die. So he has to work.
Yeah. Extreme workaholic. And we've seen that over the years. To talk about how he only sleeps like 2 hours a day, if that much.
Which is insane. I mean, I don't know how he survived doing that. The body needs sleep.
Yeah.
So look, how about this, ladies and gentlemen, boys? Do we go ahead and see, Vince McMahon possibly getting Billy Corgan on the phone?
No. I can see him maybe trying to get a discussion with him. I just don't see it happening.
It would be the greatest irony considering what happened in the history with the NWA and WWE.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the same applies to the AWA for that matter.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know if you can revive that company anyway. I mean, look at all the signed wrestlers to both main companies right now. Who's actually going to jump ship to go with Vince? Think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're not wrong. But look, from there, we move on to the next question. Master Sean 007, thank you for this one. Next one comes from Hot Rod 316. He says, do you feel that the Dynamite overrun is overly done? Every Wednesday the show ends like 10:05 a Central. Plus, rumors has it that SmackDown will remain at 3 hours on Friday nights. Bottom line, is there too much programming of wrestling going on? I mean,
it's overkill. No.
Yeah.
It's been overkill. That's why we're begging for SmackDown to go back to 2 hours. And I think next week, is it? Or the week after? It goes back.
Well, from basically what the plan was. I think USA Network has liked what has been going on with their ratings. And they're going to keep it for the foreseeable future is what the explanation was, that they're going to stay with 3 hours for right now. What was supposed to happen is by early summer, like June, first couple of weeks of June would have been the last time that they would do a 3 hour show. Then they would go back into 2 hours, which they should, because Raw is 2.5 hours now. And that's on Netflix. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot as to where a show for that, with all the talent that they have, it works. 3 hours is too long for a lot, especially when you're going to do premium live events that are going to be about that same length.
Yeah, and compared to SmackDown and Raw, Dynamite isn't that long if they're just going to 10:10 or 10:12, wherever they come off at. That's not that long of a show. So,
yeah,
exactly. Well, look, from there, that marks the end of the questions pretty much for today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that was good for itself. Once more, you want to go ahead and be a part of that action, you want us to go ahead and send in questions, just DM us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event. Send in the question, it will be featured on the next episode of the show. With that being said, we get to the last part of today's show, which is, of course, our reviews for Battleground and Saturday night's main event. Now, of course, we kicked off our weekend with Saturday night's main event in the fold. So, look, peeps, Chris, what did you guys think of the show? Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I love Saturday night's main event. I thought everything clicked. I thought the opener was a tremendous match. The way they did that. Refresh my memory on with Bronson Reed coming back. Correct.
Yes,
that was perfectly done. There's so many different elements to the show that made it feel good. The main event was perfectly done. Also, my biggest gripe with the show, and I think everyone online has agreed, and we don't know what's going on there. Is it age? Is it whatever? Jesse the Body Ventura. That was sad.
Oh, I was so disappointed.
And just like I just like. Oh
I think the match was something.
His commentary would have worked if we didn't have the 80s to prove what he was saying was a complete contradiction of everything he was saying. I mean, oh God. Cage match, go through the door, over the top.
Great.
That was.
Yeah.
No, it was.
But then he kept going back to it. He wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah. The thing that Ventura was always good at was whatever his character or what he was saying, he believed in. He harped on it to make it work, and then he spoke words that made you believe in his point that made sense. The fact is, the face goes out of the cage through the door, and the thought process was the way Vince used to book everything. The face always climbed the cage and got out. It was more heroic. It was come from behind. It was show against all odds, and then he goes through the door. But the way he acted as if this was something that, it doesn't happen. It just came across as odd. Just, oh.
So, okay, what do you guys think about Logan Paul? I mean, granted, it was a busy finish. It was, I don't know, some would argue over.
That was a weird main event. For me, it was a weird main event. I feel that I was genuinely about to go ahead and get myself, worried about a good match. I genuinely thought, okay, good. You know what? Privy to Logan Paul matches against certain stars in the company already, I thought that this was going to be one of those matches where we kind of would have looked back at it and would have been like, okay, cool. Let's see how he gels with Jey Uso. Of course, that's not what we got. We got a John Cena run-in, which, of course, was kind of previewed to us, earlier within the night when he kind of came across Jey and he was like, yo, it would be so weird if you lost to Logan Paul, and that would perfectly just ruin wrestling. And I remember even speaking to Peeps about it, early within the show, and I was like, would John Cena cost Jey Uso the World Heavyweight title? I was really thinking, okay, we're going to get a good match, and then towards the end, Cena's going to run in, Cena's going to go ahead and cost Jey the match, and then we would go from there. That's what I was thinking was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to end that early, which that sucked because I was like, well, damn, I was really looking forward to the match. I genuinely was. Maybe if we didn't have so many commercials, maybe we would have gotten extra minutes or extra time to go ahead and get to that.
And plus, Saturday night's main event is live. It's not taped like it used to be. So they don't have a chance to edit.
I also think Logan Paul can only carry Jey Uso so long. No, Jey Uso sucks in the ring. I'm sorry. He's terrible.
You got a point. So his moveset is very limited in a sense. Not as grand as you thought it would be.
But he's the most over guy in the company. Right now, he's even more over than Cody.
That's what helps.
That's the push that they're giving.
Exactly. But when it comes down to the ending, I kind of booked it in a sense. I was like, look, Cody comes back. It'll make sense for Cody to come back in Tampa, Dusty Country. He did end up coming back, save Jey Uso the time to go ahead and win the match. And of course, now we get the booking for Money in the Bank, which would be Cena and Logan Paul against Cody and Jey Uso in a tag team match.
They left no ambiguity as to where they were going after that.
They went right away. Boom, boom, boom.
But it's straight BS. For me, it's just straight BS because the thing with WWE right now, it just seems like they don't go ahead and look at what people want. They speak so much about, we're gonna give the fans what they want. Babes, I'm just saying, wasn't it kind of written in the stars for there to be John Cena versus CM Punk for the WWE title at Money in the Bank. Literally 14 years since it happened before.
Yes.
Literally, wasn't it written in the stars? Wasn't it possible that could have happened?
Yes, it was. But I think that they have so many irons going on right now. They have so many things that are getting heated up and things that they're building outward that they couldn't come back to that, especially now the way that they've been building Cena and this whole championship run.
Well then, look, from there, that would be it. But for me, I genuinely think it was, it wasn't as bad of a show. I love the flow of it. Certain matches were great, especially including this steel cage match.
It was better than the first Saturday night's main event as far as content and flow. And like Chris stated, with the nostalgia, they did a better job of the nostalgia aspect of it. Even showing Jey Uso with the championship at the beginning in the opening credits where they freeze and go to the show. I actually like that touch.
It's funny. I just had to go. I had a laugh going ahead and seeing some talk on my screen. That's where it really went ahead and set in for me. I was just like, wait, is that Tantaka? I was like, okay, you know what? Okay,
and his son is on the other channel, Speedball, Mike Bailey.
Good grief. Just because they both have mullets. Oh, man. The WWE, what I think, if they're going to leverage the fact that they have celebrities and stars in their audience, they need to show more former wrestlers than all of these Hollywood celebrity actors that nobody cares about. And they had Burt Kreischer on the show, and I forgot who his Tom Segura, who literally railed on wrestling fans for being wrestling fans.
Talk about it.
I don't understand why that is. It's just like having Tony Hinchcliffe on there, which nobody wanted. I guess that's where they're going. They're looking for the quick money maker as far as we have the celebrity here.
That's the TKO grab. I mean, Look at the UFC. Look how they go ahead and do shows. What do they go ahead and put within their shows? Who are the celebrities that you usually see, like literally around ringside when it comes to a big main event fight, like, Usman and, Edwards, or, what would it be? Sugar versus Tito, or, what is it, peeps? Yes, they're going to have the controversial people. I mean, look at it. We had our president on there literally almost every single main event leading up to his campaign. I mean, let's keep it up 50. This is the TKO grab. You go ahead and put as many celebrities that people know, and then go from there. When literally, I think we kind of just like seeing the professional wrestlers who paved the way being on the show. I hate that they only do it as a nostalgia grab when it comes down to Saturday night's main event. I would have enjoyed if it was on a Raw, if it was on a SmackDown, if your preview to this. Like a WrestleMania, if you're gonna go ahead and sit there and show certain celebrities at a WrestleMania, look, you had DDP ringside.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, look. Oh my, you have all these different types of people, but no, it's Real Adesanya. Little Yachty here, Drewski here. You think? Okay, look, it's cool to see these celebrities, but look at it this way: Toronto Elimination Chamber. Drake was literally sitting ringside. Did they go ahead and have any notion to that? Did they say anything about that? No, but we saw him. That would have just sat there. You would have been like, "Oh my gosh, okay, they have celebrities here. This is cool." But you don't go ahead and sit there and use that as a money grab every single now and then, just so people can be like, "Oh, they're gonna have celebrities here at every single WWE show. I wonder which one we're gonna get this time." It takes off of the wrestling. I don't like that. That I don't like. But from there, we'll move away from Saturday night's main event and we'll go ahead and get into Battleground to end the show.
Real quick before Battleground, I just had a thought. I was watching Raw. And how great was Seth Rollins with that crowd when he started berating them, and then they start singing his song, and then he just looks and goes, "What? Like, what is wrong with you people?" It was so well done, and it was so ad-libbed by him because it's so true. What do these people want? They want to sing the song, but then they want to boo him. Nothing makes listen. That is not a good look.
Yeah, it's the same thing that Cena made a point to make. It's like, this is a dysfunctional relationship. Right. And that's literally what's happening. Boo me, but cheer my song. What?
Yeah. Rollins had me rolling. He played it so well.
Yes.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But from there, look, Battleground. What is our review on that? How are we feeling about that, ladies and gentlemen? Peace. quickly.
Battleground was good. Battleground was really good. And as a matter of fact, and I said this in our text thread, I thought Battleground was, of all of the shows that we saw the entire weekend, Battleground was the best show of the weekend. Bar none.
Indeed.
The two women's matches on that card were sensational. I thoroughly enjoyed those matches, and the pacing was really good. I love the camera work. I love the commentary, but even more so, the in-ring work was top notch. We got a lot of surprises, but also at the same time, we saw really good in-ring work, and I thoroughly enjoyed Battleground.
I agree. Chris, just end the show.
Yeah, not enough hours in a day to watch everything. I'm sorry, I can't watch everything.
But by the way, before we go, there's one thing that Chris and I have always talked about is these triple threat matches. I have to bring up what happened on Raw between Penta, Dragon Lee, and was it Penta? Yeah, Penta, Dragon Lee, and Chad Gable.
Right.
There was a spot in the match where Penta had Dragon Lee in a gory special on his back and looked like he was going to have Chad Gable in a double underhook. I don't know what the move was going to be. Maybe he's going to hit him with a tiger drive or whatever was the case. Somehow, because Penta, I don't know if he's a power wrestler and all of a sudden tried to do this one move, he lost his balance. And Chad Gable fell right on his face. I thought he broke his neck. And after we saw during the match, he was busted wide open hard way. So these kinds of things that we've talked about in these triple threat matches, there's more of an element of danger and injury that can happen. We saw what happened a couple of weeks ago with Zoe Stark blowing out her knee. Now that was kind of a different scenario. She was doing a springboard drop kick and landed wrong on her leg, and that's what injured her. But in general, a lot of these triple threat matches have to be toned down some. I see why they're doing them, but it's overkill. It's overkill.
We've been saying that for months, and the problem is now whenever you get a really good one, it stands out. Yes, it does.
Yes.
But then the other ones feel worthless because they shouldn't be the case. Let's just have singles matches, please.
Yes. It's like if everybody's bleeding, when you have a main event where somebody gets busted open, it kind of loses its steam as importance to the card and to the match because you've seen it a bunch of times before.
You literally have a 2.5 hour show and a 3 hour show. You can have singles matches.
Yes. Yes.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that marks the end of Saturday afternoon's main event here today. We appreciate you guys for going ahead and tuning in on your Saturday afternoon with us. Look, we'll be back for episode 24 next week. We hope to go ahead and enjoy it alongside you guys. So, look, enjoy your week.
I don't get to rant on Ospreay and Paige. I missed the first half of the show. Come on now.
You want to give them the floor to end the show?
You know what? I'll
Chris.
sound off. Peeps will sound off. Mr. 411, you're ending the show today.
Yes.
I mean, okay. So this show, it's hard to watch. Okay, I get it. You're a hardcore fan of AEW. You're a diehard. You want to see this stuff, and you tune in all the time. And I'm not saying there isn't good wrestling. There is. There's good wrestling mixed in. But the problem is, as always, you continually get guys just hitting every move. And in the Ospreay Page match, so it's a good 15-minute match. And I've always said this. And after that, what happens? What happens? They continue to do the same stuff. We get a chop. We get a forearm, a chop, a forearm, a chop. Then they wrestle again. Then we get the same spots over and over again. Then they kick out. They kick out again. Then they do back to the chop. It's repetitive. How people can love this stuff, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with you. I think you're low IQ, you're low T, and you live in your mom's basement. Because anyone with a brain can't like this stuff because you watch the same stuff over and over again. It's nothing different. How is this good? How? And then the star ratings from Uncle Nutjob. I mean, it's out of control. It is so bad. There's no way this Page Ospreay match is 5.5 stars. There's no way. It's just not that good of a match. You're disrespecting all of the matches that happened yesteryear. And then Uncle Nutjob, go back and review all the other matches from the past. They're better matches because they wrestled. There was psychology. They tell a story. What's the story here? In fact, I was talking about this. If the page, first of all, it's the Owen Cup, right? The Owen Cup. These two are in there trying to kill each other. Now, granted, I know a title is on the line here, but aren't you supposed to honor Owen Hart in any kind of way? Wouldn't it have been better if you did a different kind of finish where maybe you get the WrestleMania 10 roll-up with Owen Hart, Bret Hart, that kind of finish? Give me something different. And then also Ospreay with the 1,000 neck issues. Okay, so I get it. The Buckshot Larry ended the match. But what if you went in a different direction and had Hangman actually use the Tiger Driver 91 to beat Ospreay with that move? Because of his neck, he would lose, and it would make sense. You'd be selling the neck in the right way. Instead, they have to go with their finish. They can't. It's very rare in AEW where they don't give you the finish, where they don't do their own finish, and they have to do it 3 times. Everybody has to kick out of everything 3 times. It dilutes the product. That doesn't mean anything anymore. You people that love this stuff, you're insane. You're insane. It's hard to watch. I turned this off 3 times, and I had to go back and watch it because it's so bad. It's so bad. And again, good athletes, they do everything right, but it just moves. They're just doing moves. There's nothing else. Move, move, move. Nothing makes sense. Horrible. Well, with that said, that officially wraps up Saturday afternoon's main event. For the Peeps Nage, the Phenomenal One, I am Mr. 411. Take care, guys. God bless.
Extreme.